Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So, for this next session, we are delighted to introduce our speakers, Dr. Elizabeth M.H. Newbury and Sonia O'Brien. Their talk is AI Games from Neural Networks to AI's Anatomy, and it promises to be an engaging exploration into the fascinating world of AI. Without further ado,
Thank you so much. I'm Liz Newbury. I'm the director of the Serious Games Initiative at the Wilson Center, and I'm joined by my program coordinator, Sonia O'Brien. And we're here to talk to you a little bit about AI games. This is not going to be a deep dive into artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is going to be how we translated a lot of that research into a game-based format. Why are we doing that? Well, at the Wilson Center is an international policy think tank. We focus largely on trying to educate people about leading policy issues. And I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of people are talking about artificial intelligence. And so we've created a series of games to focus on those topics. I want to provide a little bit further context to our games specifically because we do a large range of games at the Serious Games Initiative. Everything from broad scale digital games like our Fiscal Ship or the Plastic Pipeline, which just won last night for Game and Environmental Impact. Thank you for the obligatory cheers. I'll pay you later. And then the other side of it is we also create experiential learning experiences for more of a closed door exercise or more tabletop exercises. So we run the full gamut. I am endeavoring to click. There we go. So the context for these games on AI specifically, first is we have a series of seminars called the AI or the Wilson Center Tech Labs. We've been doing artificial intelligence before it was cool. I just want to, again, emphasize that, not to give me any hipster cred, but just before it became a buzzword, we've been educating congressional staff and executive level staff in the US government about artificial intelligence with the idea that if you are more equipped to know what the basics of artificial intelligence are, not only from a technological perspective, but also from a geopolitical or policy perspective, this sort of introductory will help you be a better informed policymaker. As part of this year and last year's Tech Labs, we decided to really up our game with our experiential learning experience. So the seminars are really, we bring in outside experts, very similar to a classroom. They lecture. Then we have like an exercise that they do. And then we lecture again. Well, they lecture again. So we wanted to really, we talked to a lot of these experts and try to figure out where are the gaps in knowledge, where can we help, where can we really put the ball on the ground. So some of the topics that we just cover in general in the tech labs, and again, these are only for government staff, but it is the very first lesson. What is machine learning? What is learning? How do neural networks work? What are some of the current and future applications of AI? Who are currently the main players in the AI, especially from a geopolitical perspective? And the other aspect that we're going to be talking about today is bias in AI systems, particularly algorithmic bias. So the two themes that we're going to be talking about today with our games are what are neural networks and how do they work? And then also bias in AI. I should also say that we're going to preview just a little bit of our research on what we're calling the second level of our AI labs. You have to have passed the first level to be in part of our alumni network to be part of this one. But one of the things that we're doing is we're creating an experience with Fable Vision Studios on deep fakes. Whew, exciting. Okay, so these are the games that we're going to be talking about. One is Navigating Neural Networks. This is an example of a game where we had a very firm concept in mind. We talked very closely to the person who leads that seminar, and we wanted to create something slightly fun, but also something that basically took his very nice GIFs and slides to something that was more hands-on, experiential, that people could manipulate and really get a good idea on what is a neural network and how does it work. The other game that we're going to be talking about today is called AI's Anatomy, after Grey's Anatomy. It is about data quality and algorithmic bias. For this one, we actually took an existing peer-reviewed piece from Oppenheimer, no, not Oppenheimer, but Oppenheimer out of UC Berkeley. And this was a piece that we'll talk a little bit more about, but it largely looked at an algorithm that was used nationwide for the medical healthcare system to identify patients that needed extra help or needed to be put into a high risk program. So they might have a pre-existing condition. They might have other forms of clues that were leading to that, maybe that they needed more support. Spoiler alert, the researchers found that that particular algorithm was a little bit biased towards things like race. So the good news is, again, spoiler alert, they managed to fix the algorithm, but they did have to flag first that it was biased. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Then again, we'll preview the deepfakes research. I'm going to pass it over to Sonia now.
Hello. So for the first interactive that we're seeing here, the first part of it is a visualization of seeing different pixels being shown to the user and trying to guess whether it's a blueberry muffin or a chihuahua. Very complicated. They're obviously super similar, I know. But what this does is it allows the user to see how a human touch and human checking is super important when working with AI and encourages them to join the conversation. Especially as newbies, lowering the barrier of entry is crucial. And the second part of the interactive works through different visualizations of what is a neural network. And so there are 3 different segments on that. You have low level of training, medium level of training, and a high level of training. Of course, with the more inputs that you put into it, you're more likely to get the desired output. And there's also the simple, moderate, and advanced neural networks with more connections in between the different variables and the different weights. And the further you go up that, the more likely you are to have the desired outcome, whether the AI is able to guess if it is a chihuahua or a blueberry muffin. In this next interactive, we have a beautifully personified version of an AI model named Beta. And as Liz described, you are able to go through different patient records, look through them, and help Beta refine what is important to look through when trying to decide what kind of care each of these individual patients need. So as Liz already said, there's a spoiler alert, you cannot win until the end, because in the beginning, the first round, the AI is only trained on 4 different variables that don't give a very holistic picture of what it is to be a human, what it is to need healthcare, and what that looks like. And that is resembling like the lack of data that there was originally included in those models that we used to use. As you go through each level, there are more patients, you're able to learn more about their medical history, and Beta is trained with more and more variables. So what's very exciting is that we're coming out with a second edition of this game where we picked key terms that the users are likely to be confused or interested and want to know more about, and you can type it in to the chat, and Beta will ask guiding questions that help facilitate conversations, whether you're playing it by yourself or with your family or in the tech labs. As Liz said earlier, these games are for the tech labs, but they're also available completely free to the public. And we're super excited about that second edition, which will lower the barrier to entry, even if you're not in the tech labs and want to try this out on your own time. We're also adding a tutorial feature in the beginning for those that aren't lucky enough to get in the class, but super excited about that edition. And no.
Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, fine. It sounds like we're all going skiing. I can Let's I just chat cycles up and back. Nice. Check.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Have fun.
Okay.
That's great. Yay. Thank you for bearing with us, and thank you to our tech team. Yay. So just a couple more points on our process here. So in both cases, one of the things we do at the Wilson Center is we take research and we try to make it relatable. We try to lower that barrier of access. So in this case, we have one interactive where we worked very closely with an expert to really understand what the barriers of understanding are for neural networks. And instead of making a complicated simulation online or, in point of fact, another neural network, we really tried to think of our audience and tried to make it so that it was something light, fun, blueberry muffins and chihuahuas, and really trying to make it so that even if you are not a tech person, you can execute the exercise. One of the things that also was really cool about this is we really thought about the experience of being in a seminar. One of the things that we task our folks to do is we have breakout sections on this the device I'm sure you've never heard of, Zoom, that we get people together, we put in breakout rooms. And one of the things we really thought through was how do we make this so it's not just a bunch of individuals staring at each other's faces as they all stare at a screen to play a game. So we made it a multiplayer experience, or rather, Fablevision made it a multiplayer experience. Thank you, Fablevision. And again, we were not creating a chat GPT bot, but we wanted to give that sort of evocation of a chat GPT. We wanted to make it accessible. We wanted to make it fun. There's a Guy Fieri reference, I'm sure, somewhere in here because there's a person at Fablevision who loves Guy Fieri. And one of the things that if you take it a little too seriously, some of the bio will throw you off. But if you're here for a little fun, it's a great experience in that. You can also play it as an individual. We've posted all of these on our website. We'll have a QR code at the end so that you can actually play them. But one of the things, again, we're trying to translate is research that nobody else probably in this, well, you guys are nerds. Somebody else in this room will probably read a 25-page policy brief on AI or bias in AI systems. The average person, especially the average student, is not going to read that. So we wanted to make something where they can make that introduction into the conversation and the introduction into the space, and then feel more empowered afterwards. So you can see here one of the quotes from our participants. They thought it was very cool. So that's awesome. But one of the things we are consistently getting feedback is that either they play the game in advance of the lab or they play it during the lab, and it really grounds the conversation. They have something that they can think differently about the content from the course. They can think about artificial intelligence a little bit differently. It's not just a wonky engineering problem, and they appreciate that. We've actually participated or sent this to 4 cohorts so far, or exercises in four cohorts. Don't say that 5 times fast, please. And we've done pre and post surveys from those cohorts, mostly looking for qualitative feedback because it's still in a very much experimental or exploratory stage of design. And one of the things that we're consistently hearing is that these are easy to access, easy to engage with, making the material more exciting. Again, we have another quote up there that the required and recommended reading materials were always worth the time. The game is part of the required reading materials. I especially appreciate the links to games that help illustrate the concepts, et cetera, et cetera. You guys can read from there. But the fact that it was reflected as a gold standard was very, again, soothing to my ego and the rest of our team. From these experiences, one of the things that we're also taking and learning is the next stage of games. So we're actually doing research right now on deepfakes. Not to keep you up at night, but deepfakes are real and they are very present. We talked to about 18 different experts from across different stakeholder groups, NGOs, government, academia, And one of the things that surprised us as part of this research is that they are saying more or less the same things on what we can do about deepfakes. So there's a lot of explainer and games out there that focus on sort of the hot or not. Is it a deepfake? Is it not? Can you guess? Great. You can't. Surprise. Or maybe you're really good at it. I don't know. But in any case, our experts, we were trying to look beyond that to help, again, inform policymakers, inform them about what solutions are out there. One of my ethoses is to really try to empower players so that they can feel that they can do something about a policy or something that they're learning about. Lowering that barrier of entry, but also making sure that you don't leave with the doom and gloom sort of sense, which is very easy in topics such as deepfakes. Our experts have really pointed to a couple of different things that are really important to reflect on, and we're trying to translate into the game with Nick and Kellyanne from Fable Vision here. You guys can raise your hands. Yay! We like game developers here. But one of those things is that audiences tend to overestimate their capacity to both identify deepfakes, going back to the hot or not argument. The other side of this is that we tend to overestimate our power to do something about deepfakes, which the experts were very kind in their interviews to point out that's not the case. What we were expecting is a little bit more variety of solutions, but there were clusters in our interviews. One being that there are limited technical solutions at the time, such as we've talked about what type of data is being integrated. Is there watermarking? Is there some sort of chain or sort of authentication of content? That's one strategy. Those are more technical solutions. Other forms of solutions include policy solutions, which a lot of our experts pointed out is very narrow, very little precedent in this space. And if anyone has ever talked to a lawyer, we like precedent for law. So they're really focusing on those narrow sort of definitions of what precedent are in these spaces. The other most significant and particularly important for this audience is that education and literacy are very key to mitigating deepfakes. Universally, one of the things that the experts, I shouldn't say universally, I'm sure there's an lone N out here of somebody who disagreed with us or with the rest of the experts. But one of the things that they also mentioned was that literacy is important. We need to make sure that people don't fear everything that they view on the internet, but also don't trust everything that they read on the internet, which I think we can all appreciate that sort of balance that they're really trying to steer towards. So stay tuned. That will be coming out in the fall, and it'll be, again, live on our website as part of this series of AI Labs. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to our talk. The QR code will send you to the games.